Hi there, I'm Andy Hazzard from Hazzard Free Farms, Grains and Beans, and Hazzard Free Farm. And I'm really excited to have been working with the Chicago market. We are going to do a quick demo of making my cornbread. My recipe was taken from my grandmother. She was really happened to live next door while I was growing up. And being the eldest of three, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. And so I joke that I've got this sort of um, strange, it's as if I lived from, 1940 to present because they just taught me about a lot of the simpler, older ways of doing things. And so it was a lot of the inspiration of why I took the angle that I did when I entered farming. And I do come from a farming family. So, at any rate, let's get started. And the best thing to know about this recipe is it's basically just 2 cups of whatever you have handy. Um, and that can be divided between flour and cornmeal and different types of cornmeal. Some people like a cornbread with more tooth. Um, I personally do, so I use more coarse cornmeal in mine. You can also make it with like a cup of flour and a cup of cornmeal. We're gonna do gluten-free this morning because that's I think it actually tastes better that way. I like a more full corn flavor. Um, and I am running short on buttermilk, so I'm going to use some of the local yogurt that we've been getting. This was a really exciting find, and we are selling it on our market, the People's Market in Rockford. So this, I'm just going to try it. I've never made it with yogurt, but it's 1 cup of milk, buttermilk, or any other kind of milk you'd like to use. So that's that. So we're going to do 1 cup of fine cornmeal, which I've got here. So measure that out. The other thing is that you need to be preheating your oven. And while that's preheating, you can get everything measured out, but don't add your wet ingredients to it until right before you're ready to put it in the oven, because if you do, it will start to, your baking soda and baking powder will start to work, and it'll get kind of worn out before you ever get it in the oven. And so I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. So 1 cup of fine cornmeal into the bowl. And then you can do like a 1/2 cup of flour and a 1/2 cup of coarse cornmeal. I'm just going to do a whole cup of coarse cornmeal. And right before I throw this in the oven, I'm going to pull out just like a little bit, and I'm going to make a pancake for myself because I'm hungry. So there's that. Now we're going to do sugar. I like myself Morena pure cane sugar. Sugar is one of those things that locally we don't really have yet. And just make sure that no clumps in it. So going to add our sugar. I do see a clump. The other thing about this recipe is that it's really easy for kids. I have nieces and nephews. They are pretty into cooking and baking, and I think it all started with my niece making goo, and so that kind of got her into the kitchen. And then I made taffy with them, and we make popcorn and simple things. This is thick. This is delightful. Oh, I'm super excited about having this yogurt. Buttermilk and yogurt. So I'm going to measure this out, and then I'll go back and do my baking powder and baking soda. All right. It is, so just to remind you, 1 cup of cornmeal or flour, however you want to do that. And then, so a cup of cornmeal, cup of flour, half a cup of sugar, a teaspoon of, I've been using aluminum free because I think it's important. And put that in there. If you like it fluffier, add a little bit more. The way they work, baking powder and baking soda, one kind of handles the early rise in the first few minutes of baking, and the other one comes in later on and sustains the rise. And I don't remember which is which, but any good baker would probably know that, or you could look it up. And then we're gonna do, a half a teaspoon of baking soda. So that's 1 teaspoon baking powder, half teaspoon baking soda, and half teaspoon salt. I grind my own salt, and I have black sea salt and pink and regular sea salt. And then I just grind it to whatever. The black sea salt kind of has like a stronger sulfur flavor, so be wary of that if you're not into it. So sometimes your baking soda and baking powder might be a little clumpy. In that case, just take your fingers in there and grind it up. And like I said, make sure that oven is heating to 450. And then remember to turn it down when you put it in. It won't burn it. At least that's been when I've forgotten, it didn't burn it. But it definitely affected it. It was a little bit darker. But I like mine crispy, So we're just going to whisk this up, get everything work together. And if you want to make extra, like I said, you can definitely do that. And then just store them in a ball jar or in some of these bags. Reuse them if you can. And we are at 350 in the oven, so everything's coming along swimmingly in there. In the meantime, I personally cook with iron skillets. I love them. Don't ever use soap on your iron skillet. I know it sounds crazy, but just take a scrubby to it. If something's baked on, put a little water in it, put it back on the stove, and they should look like this. If you buy one used, it might look like this. It's got some pretty serious rust going on in there, but that's okay. It's still good. This one needs to be re-seasoned. You can look that up on the internet. You just put a little oil in it and heat it up. And they keep forever. They won't kill a canary in your house. And I just like cooking on them. They are heavy. So I like a crispy cornbread. So I put a little bit of extra oil in my pan. So it's about, should measure it and see, because I just do it by eye. My grandmother eyed everything, and it always drove me crazy because it took me years. I really still can't make corn cakes the way she made them, even though I've tried. All right, so we're gonna do, it's about a tablespoon. If you like a crispy outer edge, definitely put some oil in, and that's part of the reason that you start the oven at 450. Because that way, when it goes in, it gets that crispiness on it. And then you can, let this run around in your pan, but you don't have to. If you pour the cornbread mix in the middle, it will push the oil out to the edges. So there's that. And we are at 4:05. So everything's coming along well. In the meantime, I am lucky enough to have chickens. So I have my little bowl of eggs here from my hens, and I don't bother refrigerating my eggs because they're coming fresh and we don't wash them because they're nest eggs. So if you do get nest eggs, you can wash them right before you use them or not. It's really up to you. So that's that. And we're at 4:20. I'm going to go ahead and mix this and get it ready to put in. And at some point here, I'll stop and we'll be able to take your questions. Due to rural internet issues, this episode has been pre-recorded. We were just worried that we wouldn't be able to connect. If you hear about, rural internet, it is a really big issue out here that we don't have good internet. It has definitely been a challenge with the business and to my sanity. So 1 cup milk, buttermilk, or other liquid, 1 egg. Got our egg in there. And 1/4 of a cup of oil. And you can use any oil. I've used coconut, grapeseed. It really doesn't matter. Or it doesn't seem to. And actually, I'll cut this back a tiny bit because I have a teaspoon in there. So, and it's looking lovely. All right, just mix it up well. It's gonna be thick. Don't worry about it. And if you make a bunch of recipes up and change as you go along using different ingredients, you'll figure out, just keep track of it. You'll never remember. I always think I'm going to remember and I don't. It smells delicious. All right. Where'd my, there we go. So we're going to pour this in. Oh, I said I was going to keep some out. I'll pull it back out now. I just need a cup. Not even a cup. I'm taking 1/4 of a cup back out to make myself a corn cake. With an egg. All right. Already starting to see a little bit of the leavening working. So we're going to throw this in and come back. All right, so I've got the cornbread out of the oven. I cut it and it is really good. It is a little bit more cakey and I think that is from the yogurt, but I really like the flavor. And that extra bit of oil in the pan makes it so that they pop right out. All right, thanks for joining us.